right. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Just trying to get wound down a bit from a pretty busy weekend. My mic moved here. Here. Okay. How's everybody doing today? Been a long weekend. Hey, David. Sunday evening time kind of closes out a vinyl week. Hello, David. Thanks for joining. Yeah. Yeah, I was in San Antonio this weekend to visit my daughter, and they had a record show. And I think Scherzer's the name of the town. It's north of San Antonio, and it was packed. I'm glad I got there for the early bird about 8:30. So from 8:30 to 10, it wasn't as packed, but I started getting claustrophobic about 11:30. I had to get out of there. So I was going to share a few things with you that I picked up and just talk a bit about a video I'm going to be having coming out, and also catch you up on what's going. Hey, Nick, catch you guys up on what's been going on with any more releases out of the Analog Productions Acoustic Sounds visit. So wait till I get a few more people on here, and then I'll catch you all up. So yeah, so I picked up a few things. I'll say nothing much. The most monumental thing I picked up, ironically, was a cover. That I know sounds weird. Yeah, it was a cover. So, little story. Let me pull my. So back a few years ago, well, I think it was right before COVID, I was in Europe, and I'm a really big fan of Steely Dan. And so I saw this album, and it said, I'd never seen it, Steely Dan Reeling in the Years, and then it said, Ricky, don't lose that number, do it again, Haitian Divorce, which I'm sure we all need. And yeah, so there were four tunes on the album, and I thought, that's cool, I've never seen that before. So I quickly looked at the vinyl. It looked good, bought it, got it home, threw it on the turntable, and started to play it. And I went, okay, that's good. First song's Do It Again. That sounds good. I like that. And then the second song came in, and it was Dirty Work. And I'm like, wait a minute. Dirty Work, that's on the Can't Buy a Thrill album. That's not on this 4 EP. So it turned out that here's what I really got. This was actually in it was a Probe label. And this is what actually was in there. It was actually Can't Buy a Thrill. So I was thrilled. Let me grab this real quick. I need a bigger tape. What's the old saying? I think I'm going to need a bigger boat. Yeah. So this 4 EP Steely Dan turned out to be, I think, a UK press of Can't Buy a Thrill. So I'm like, well, that's cool. I like that, but I got a jacket and a album that don't match, which, that's never really a good thing. So I went to this show Saturday and in San Antonio, and then there was Steely Dan Can't Buy a Thrill on the Probe label, and the numbers matched and everything. And I said, well, I've got me a cover. And so the album was in VG Plus shape. It's the same album. It's not in as good a shape as the one I had, frankly. So, I mean, I think I bought it more for the cover, actually, which is the point of the whole discussion. I bought it more for the cover than I did for the album inside. But I'll give that UK to somebody. It's pretty good shape. It sounds good. So it's no big deal. So I've been a collector of Steely Dan's albums and Can't Buy a Thrill. I'm kind of an addict when I find Can't Buy a Thrill. Now, Can't Buy a Thrill is an expensive album. It's hard to find and it's expensive. I saw it at the show between, actually, this was when the price was 30. They went from 30 to $85. I think the 85 was a yellow Canadian, which I have a copy of that one. And so Steely Dan, yeah. So anyway, so I've got Steely Dan in Quadraphonic, which is they had several. I'll show you a few. So I collected quad back then. I had quad equipment. Now I still have quad equipment. I can play this. This was in 3 formats they used to have. This was in QS, which was Sansui's format. Really, the mix is a little different. Sounds really nice. Hi, Nicole. Sounds really nice. Has just a little bit different mix and interesting, and really sounds really immersive in quad. When you really listen to this album, it has a lot of percussion and jazz influence. I mean, my gosh, you talk about a album that's probably a 10 out of 10. And then I have Countdown to Ecstasy in Quadraphonic, Steely Dan, and Pretzel Logic. And so if you see these and you like Steely Dan, grab it, even if you're on a quad system, because it's not gonna affect anything, or it'll play just fine. It's just the mix is gonna sound just a little, I say different, not bad, just a little bit, little different emphasis of certain things versus others, but they really are interesting sounding. But like I said, when it comes to Steely Dan, I've got a yellow ABC label, Can't Buy a Thrill. I've got here's that Canadian one that's a yellow vinyl album, which sounds amazing for color vinyl. Then I've got early press ABC black label here, and it's a gatefold. Then I think I've got a rare ABC children's letter blocks, ABC letter blocks label. So they had different ABC labels that they put these out on. So I've been collecting those. So the only reason I brought that out was because I'm going to be doing a video on Can't Buy a Thrill, 50th year of that album. There's Steer You. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a video on Can't Buy a Thrill because it's one of my top 5 albums. To me, it's one of those that, there's not a bad track on the album. And for a debut album, I think it's one of the best that's ever been a debut for a band. And you can just see the early formation of Steely Dan and the jazz influences and the rhythm and the vocals and the popish kind of influence there. Don't Do It Again. When it first hit, it really sounded different. It was like, oh, that's really a different kind of sounding song. And it just it just really grabs you, kind of thing. But that album is just one of those, to me, that you can just play it end to end, and have nothing whatsoever to want to lift the needle for, except for flipping the record. It's one of those, I think. Then I got a Buffalo Springfield's Greatest Hits for $12, which I thought's a double album in really, really good VG++ condition. Thought that was a good deal. And let's see. Some of these are a little bit boring. So, group Jane Americans. The reason I bought this purely is I've never found a true stereo version of the song Come a Little Bit Closer. So I want to see if this is going to be one. I haven't ever found one. So it's one of those songs I remember because my mom used to sing it and liked it. And it just kind of has, how these songs are. They have memories for individuals. 2 LP Roy Orbison's Greatest Hits on Monument. Really, really clean, $10. This is really one of the better mixes. Actually, MoFi did a version of this exact album, which is worth quite a bit. I'd love to have it, but I don't. Carly Simon coming around again. I've been talking about this one a little bit. I'm trying to get as many different presses of this as I can. This, I think, is an RCA Record Club one, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm trying to collect all the different ones to hear the difference between the different mastering that went on for some of those. This album I bought. This is Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I bought it because of the cover. That's it. I bought it because of the cover. It's called Faces, and it just has some interesting looking songs in terms of titles and the whole focus on people and different people. I just thought, Maurice White did some really innovative things, both lyrically and musically. And I thought, what the heck? Give it a shot. See what, it's $10, I think, is, just a double album. I thought, let's see what it's got. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it or heard it. If you have, let me know. But cool silver embossed lettering. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the label kind of got to me. Here's a Grassroots, More Golden Grass. I collect Grassroots albums. I don't have this particular one. I have several that are greatest hits, including there's 16 greatest hits in quad. But I collect theirs. I'm a big fan of the Grassroots. The guy Creed Bratton, who was on The Office, the U.S. Office, the bald fella toward the back of The Office, he was a lead singer for the Grassroots from 67 to 69. So little fun fact, if you didn't know that, until he started getting so drunk they had to kick him out of the band. Our Alan Parsons Project, Let's Talk About Me. This is from Vulture Culture. It's a 12-inch promo. See if it had the promo label. Oh, yeah, there's a little promo label there in the corner. So, big Alan Parsons fan as well. Walter Egan. Okay. And this, I think, was the one he had. This was his follow-up album to the one that had Magnet and Steel. I got that one too in here. I think I found both of them. Here's just a old, compilation, Funny Bone favorite record songs. Just kind of one of those old Roncos. It was like, I think it was $5. It was in really nice condition. Once in a while, you just like to listen to something that's goofy, since I'm used to looking at something that's goofy in the mirror every day. I might as well. Okay, if you don't have this album, it's a great one. Sergio Mendes, Confetti. Okay, this is really good. This is the one had the hit Alibis. Alibis are watertight. It was a great. But he, Sergio Mendes was more of an arranger, and he would put songs together, arrange them well, then get different vocalists for them, and he would basically promote those vocalists. Quincy Jones did the same thing with certain James Ingram and others. So it's kind of their motif. But the couple of really, really good songs on here. Again, Alibis is a good one. Let's Give a Little More This Time is a good one. What's the other one? Real Life. That's Real Life. Could have easily been a top 10 45. That I don't think they ever released it as such. But this is a good $5 album to get. Confetti. Very, very, very pleasurable. I got the soundtrack to 10 because I wanted to have Bolero, which is from that movie. There's also a couple of Julie Andrews songs on here. It's one I don't have in my collection for soundtracks, and there's some funny parts in that movie beyond the whole Bo Derek thing. There are some really funny portions of that movie when he's inebriated and falls down the hill, and he goes to the dentist and he's trying to drink, and then there's coffee coming down his face when he's trying to flirt with this young gal in a coffee shop, and it's just it does have other elements. The pastor trying to play music for him, and then the dog breaking wind and running out of the room, and the old lady that was the housekeeper there blamed it on her, and they blame everything on the dog when she passes air. So here's Paul Young. Every Time You Go Away, Paul Young and his first group, the Q-Tips. So I guess they just kept their ears clean back then, and that's a original back from his first kind of venture into being with the band. And I think I got a couple more. Eh, what else I got? Oh yeah, here's the other Walter Egan, and this is the one that has Magnet and Steel, which was a hit 45 of his. And oh yeah, Roll With It. This is a 12-inch of Steve Winwood, Roll With It. I got a special friend in our Second Chance Records group who loves Steve Winwood. I'll probably gift that too. I like to do that. You know, I find something that's kind of unique for a friend and get something for him. And my last thing I got was something sealed or new, semi-new. And that was War's Greatest Hits. This was recut by Kevin Gray, I believe it is. And this has really gotten accolades as far as sonics and sound, and really well mastered and well reproduced. There were only 5,000 of these made. So if you see one, you might want to grab one. It was like $28, I think, $28.99. But apparently this is, from a sonic standpoint, the one to have. Yep, Warren Kevin. Okay, great. You know that. Thanks, David. Yeah. So I actually got two of those. So if somebody I know that is looking for one and can't find it, I'll have it. I do that occasionally because I looked on Discogs and there were like one or two, maybe. That was it. So apparently they sold a lot of that 5,000. So anyway. So that's kind of what I just picked up. Nothing earth shattering. But I will be, as I said, doing a video on Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill 50th anniversary this week, because that was a really important album to me, and still remains that way. It's just one that it just doesn't grow old. It's almost like I hear new things in some of the songs every time I listen to it. It's just kind of, melodically and instrumentally, it's just that deep. There's a lot of layers to that. And when you listen to it in quad, you pick that up more. And I think in my mind, I probably have a little bit of that in my muscle memory of my mind. And I can, even in stereo, I can kind of hear some of those things a little better. I think I can't wait until they come out with reissues of that, because that Steely Dan catalog pretty much hasn't been reissued except those last two albums that Analog Productions released in last year. Got one of those coming actually. So do I have a preference for a good Fly Like an Eagle pressing? You got burned on one at a record show. Well, tell me. Well, I'm trying to think if I've heard the OG and it's pretty strong. No, it was Bob Seger. I had Night Moves. I was thinking, did I have a MoFi? I don't know if they did a MoFi of that one. What I would tell you to do, to be honest, is go through different U.S. pressings and look in the credits. And if you look on your PC with the Discogs, you can look up credits for mastering engineers or engineers to see who worked on it. But I think it's shockingly noisy. Yeah, that would be shocking. Now, if you told me it was quiet and the low end, the bottom end wasn't as strong as you'd like, that would be more, I say stereotypical, no pun intended, of the way Japanese pressings are. But yeah, that is, shockingly noisy. I wouldn't expect a noise unless it was played on something, that was out of alignment, and it created some noise by actually tracking the grooves such that it was cutting them as it went through. Other than that, if it's noisy from the beginning of the intro, lead-ins all the way the outro into your dead wax, then it's definitely in the vinyl. So that is shocking. But I think in that area, in that genre, I would look for German pressing would probably be the most characteristically ideal for lower noise floor and for a full embodiment of the sound, including the bottom end, I would tend to move toward looking for a German pressing of that. But in the U.S., look and see if there are, if there are any cuts by, Ludwig or Grunman or anything like that you can see in the credits on the album. When you go into Discogs, it'll often say who mastered it, and that does make a huge difference. I mean, the engineer is the engineer. That's what got onto the 2-track. It's more the mastering engineer. And I watched a couple of videos. If you ever go onto Acoustic Sounds YouTube page, and I think it's Acoustic Sounds KS is their name on YouTube. There's some great interviews with Grunman on some of the things he's done in the past and the differences in what he does. I mean, I watched 2 or 3 of them last night, and I literally had dreams about some of that. It's just kind of crazy, but the mastering process is so critical to vinyl, especially to vinyl, that you gotta really watch it. But as I was saying, Steely Dan not having their catalog out, I can't wait until it comes out with maybe a better treatment, but a step up treatment, I guess I'll call it. Fagen and Becker, especially Fagen. I mean, he's really big on sonics and the sound and the recording, and he was pretty, I'll say, anal in a good sense. And isn't it funny? Anal's half of analog, but so first part, yeah. So, but anyway, very, wanting it to be exactly perfect. He was big on that. So to our benefit, of course. And you can tell it in the recordings, definitely in the recordings. I know, like, Katie Lyde was one that just really probably needs the most, would benefit the most from a new pressing, a clean, quiet pressing. I think that one probably was the one that had the most. And I think it was, frankly, partly because manufacturing of records at that time was really problematic because of the oil crisis and the vinyl availability and that kind of thing. And so I think we talked about that before. So as it relates to my Analog Productions visit, so I had about 5 segments that I could do separate type video segments on with Chad, based on topics and things like that. And as you saw in the first few, there were some auditory issues with the microphones and that type of thing. And then on the ones that were remaining, they were much worse, actually, to the point where, Chad and I put them together, and then I made them available for him to look at first. And I think we both were not really satisfied and don't really want to have it out in the public domain because the quality is just not close. I mean, even with what's there, it's smart. It's not what I really want, but at least it's listenable. Some of these others had issues beyond that. So I will be not putting out any more of the interview style. I will have one kind of as a wrap up and talk about the facility and that type of thing. But he has invited me back there in the near future to catch up with them, and there'll be some other things going on to talk about by then, and kind of bring those to you early on too. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think both of us have we want it to be it's not even being perfection, it's just what's tolerable, and so Chad really felt like that was the best thing for on both sides of the equation. So, and I respect that a lot, because you're talking about his time, and I mean, that's obviously a precious commodity. So I appreciate his approach on that. So we'll go with that. I've got a couple other things to put out this week. I've actually got a one that I'm going to be releasing on contemporary Christian music, which is something that I was into a lot in, I still listen to it, but I mean, it was in the mid 80s and beyond. And I did an interview with a guy named Tony Shore, who was in the industry at the time. And we're going to reminisce about some of the things that were going on at that time, and some of the controversies that existed in there. I got embroiled in one of them just as a John Q. Citizen with an artist, not negatively with the artist, but the industry was kind of pushing back on contemporary Christian music being played on secular radio. That was a bad thing, which is kind of crazy. But sometimes I think, it's kind of like, well, are you doing selling out? And it really was not really that at all. But, and he had the same experience with he was in the actual industry and promotions of bands and artists back then in Nashville. So, ironically, we kind of met up through Second Chance Records and Amy Grant. Yeah, Amy Grant. So it was no, it was Michael W. Smith for me, actually, which is an offshoot of Amy Grant, because he was her pianist and early on, and she really helped him get started. So yeah, I struck up a relationship with Michael W. Smith in the early '90s, and through some of that controversy. So. Is it true that U2 is a Christian band? Well, Bono doesn't like labels, I don't think, if you know what I mean. And I don't think POD, yeah, of course I have. Yeah. Yeah, POD, I remember them very well. And so, yeah, so U2, I don't think they would be categorized in, genres that way. You wouldn't find them in the CCM or gospel or what. That's not it. But some people kind of, the message they have and what have you is that, who's very ill? I'm sorry. Who do you say is very ill? Amy. I honestly had not heard that. And I'm surprised I hadn't heard that through the channels I have. So yeah, okay. Yeah, I will check. I will send a message to a couple people tonight to see, because I honestly had not heard that. She's supposed to be on tour with Michael for some of the Christmas stuff this fall, like she always does. So I don't know. I don't know if it's from her previous surgery or whatever. I guess she had a heart issue. Those things can sometimes come back. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. I'll definitely strike up a question to a couple people to see, because that would be. My shirt says Garland Gives. So this is a local city. I'm in Garland, and every year we do activities for the city and for groups on one day of the year, where as in mass, we go to all the different charitable groups and do work for them, whether they need some construction work done, some outside work, whatever they need, we work with them. And bike accident. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. Okay. Well, now, yeah, and I hate to say it, but I could have missed it easily with all that I've got going on. I'm not any more than anybody else, but my wife's been out of town in Europe, and I've been playing Mr. Mom, which I'm getting worse at every year. It seems like, or my son is more demanding. I'm not sure what. Okay. Bike accidents, recovery has many unexpected hidden gifts. Okay, well, there you go. 1 month after bicycle accident. Okay. So I somehow or another, and I don't know how, I would have thought I would have somehow run across that, or it would have come across me. So, well, okay, there you go. That's great for doing this. That's why we learn things, right? Christian band Glad. Actually, Jim Bennett, this gentleman, Tony Shore, mentions Glad. I think he was at the label that they were at. He was at various labels. So I think I remember him mentioning Glad. So when I release this video later this week, take a listen. I think that rings a bell very strongly for me. So yeah, I do remember them. There were a lot of good Christian bands. Petra, in its space was really, really predominant. And there was a band named Nouveau, which had a few CDs, no vinyl, but and they were just fabulous. Oh yeah, the Cowboys were losing. Yeah, it's It's only topical to tell me if they happen to be winning, because that would be the news. It's not news when the Cowboys are losing. That's just like a standard operating position, position there. They came to Bethany Bible College. Okay, cool. So, I live in Dallas, and I've learned to be appropriately disappointed by the sports teams here, and it's fine. It's just probably somebody said, yeah, Brady's going to kick their butt, and he's old. Well, I guess it's all relative, right? But anyway, Dallas is often more a myth than a reality when it comes to football. That's just my perspective. Sorry, Dallas fans, but they had their heyday, like one has their heyday, and it's that torch has been passed a bit. So we got Amy Grant fell off a bike, so she has Joe Biden disease. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, forget it. I'm just saying, everybody's falling off their bike these days. It's tough, but yeah, pray for her for sure. But yeah, there were a lot of great bands. He was talking a lot about Phil Keaggy, and I was talking a lot, of course, about Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant. He was in promo for Amy Grant on her House of Love album. Tells a couple great stories about Amy. Amy and Michael are two of the most genuine people you would ever want to know or meet. And I mean, they really have been true to their faith. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole Amy situation with her and her first husband and all, but I mean, there more to some things than we know and understand. I'll just leave it at that. And sometimes those decisions are defensive in the sense that they're things that have to happen. Otherwise, things will really get worse. So, but Michael, I mean, what a model human being in so many ways. And saw him. I've seen him more than anybody. I mean, I would have to literally go back and figure out how many times I've seen Michael W. Smith. But I was there last June at his reunion that he has with fans, and at his farm and that kind of thing. And that was took one of my oldest daughters, who's been a fan since a little kid. I mean, probably 6 years old. We were singing Michael W. Smith songs. So, yeah, it's a lot of memories, which, there's a lot of memories in a lot of music, but I mean, some of that's really special. So I'm going to do a video with Tony Shore on that, kind of scooting down memory lane a bit and tell a few stories. Just mixing things up a bit. I think there's some announcements coming in the next week or two in the vinyl community that are going to be pretty awesome. And I'll be trying to stay on top of those as quick as they happen. And that's, there's always something going on. The Revolver thing has been the big thing this week. I was on a few of the groups like Rachel's Ghost talking about the issue of whether the mono release that's going to be in the Super Deluxe box set is actually has any digital in it or doesn't have any digital. And Steve Westman from the Audiophiles was in conversation with Miles Showell, who is obviously the mastering guy at Abbey Roads, doing all the half speed stuff. And he was 99% sure there was no digital in it, but people are wondering why they aren't using the mono plates from the mono box and just using those and that. So the other thing I've been working on is putting together a video of the recording engineering and mastering process, the steps involved with some visuals to really kind of show what this is about. I mean, some people have confused the one-step term to mean it went direct from the tape to the record per se. But in fact, the one step means it goes from the lacquer to the stamper, skipping the mother and the father, which means it's a one step from the lacquer to the actual mastering one that's pressed, the one that actually gets pressed in with the record with the puck. So that's the difference. A lot of people have confused those issues, and they're not to be confused. So let's see, David C. Sorry, Blue Note Tone ships there too. Blue Trains, yeah. Yeah, and there were some people saying they thought it wasn't going to happen. They're saying no, 16th they're going to ship. Chad should be shipping Acoustic Sounds, Ella and Louis, and Bill Evans box set from Chad. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there'll be some things happening this week, and with actual physical releases, there'll also be, I think, some announcements of future releases, which will be important to hear as well. Fingers are crossed. Yeah, there's a lot of fingers crossed. It's a complicated process. I mean, you know when you and this is one thing I want to kind of maybe try to get Chad to kind of sit down and explain a bit. Um, and that is this thing about when you start to have a vision that you want to get X reissued, whatever X is, and all of the minutia you have to go through, uh, to get to the right people, to make the right case, to acquire the right licensing, to make the right financial arrangements that it's beneficial on all sides. All of the logistics of who's going to approve these lacquers when they come out and listen to them, and what the timing is going to be. And it's not until all of this front end stuff really goes through that you get to having a place where you can start to say what might the release date be on this. You'll notice on a lot of these, they don't necessarily, come. Uh, if they give a date, they then usually have gotten through so much already that they can assure that they have the pressing time, the equipment, they have approved lacquer, they have all the ducks in a row. I mean, there have to be a lot of ducks in a row. That's why when MoFi announced Michael Jackson's date for release, September, I mean, so November 23rd or something near Thanksgiving, it was very rare because usually they don't really even show their hand at all. And they're, some of these agreements, I mean, it's like, well, until we approve your lacquer, your test pressing, until we approve that, we're not beginning any of the, we won't allow any of the graphics to begin, or we won't let any of the, printing begin or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of dominoes that have to fall. It's a lot more complicated than I think I had an appreciation for. But just the little bit that I, was exposed to when I was there that day, I got a sense, of what it is, and so it really is a complicated and long, drawn out process. And these projects, I mean, they got to book, a Bernie Grunman or a Kevin Gray or a Ryan K. Smith. They got to book these guys way in advance in order to get their time as well. So, I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts in these things. And then when something doesn't go right on any step of the process, whatever that might be, then that's another, potential delay. So I just appreciate that a lot more now, I guess, than I had. And I see comments people roll off. Well, why don't you just do X, or why don't you just, or whatever? And it's just not that easy to do. And you got to want to do what you're, I mean, Chad, he's going to release what he wants to release, what he thinks will be consumable for his customers, something they'll want and they'll buy, something that he likes. He was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and A/B music that I can't even like or appreciate, that I'm going to sit here and try to figure out what sounds the best or whatever. And I don't think any of it sounds good in the first place. Think about it. That just doesn't add up, and even if it was something that would make him money, I mean, he wouldn't really do that. I think, that's just not his way of going about what he does and why he does it. He doesn't do it because he wants to get the best sound out there. His goal in life is to eliminate bad sound. He doesn't want that to there to be bad sound out there, and what he touches, he wants to be good. Re-releasing a Beatles Revolver box set is easier than doing same for Bill Evans. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is true. I mean, all of the ducks and the pucks are in their arrangement. I mean, that's all, EMI, and I mean, they control the whole thing. I mean, they've really got, their hands in it. They've got Miles Showell tied up. He's assigned, and so I mean, you're right. That is a very boxed in entity of collaboration and people and licensing and assignments and approvals. And I mean, it's been done before. It's been done with the previous ones. They're just mimicking the same thing when you think about it. Once they did the first one and had all the steps in place, it was just a matter of different material. Okay, we're going to box it. We're going to do that. They might do something a little different here, a little bit. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's very, whereas almost everything Chad does or even MoFi would do potentially could be very different. Now, I'm sure, when MoFi comes out with the Eagles, I mean, all the Eagles stuff is probably managed the same. And it's, that series, Van Halen series, can be done very together, and some series, if Chad was doing a series, he would have the advantage of that as well. But there's still a lot of moving parts. What sequence do we release in? How long do we wait between releases? It's like I mean, we run the same thing, even just releasing a damn YouTube video. You're kind of like going, well, this video is really trending up. I don't think I want to release another one and knock it down until it starts to tail a bit. And then I say, okay, it's time to probably release another one. That one's starting to wear, or vice versa. It doesn't do crap, and then you got to release another one because the one you had, just isn't doing anything. So it's similar. It's all part of the game, I guess I'll say, so to speak, and that's fine. But it is it's an effort of love. It really is. I don't know any way to put it, because th- there's just so much to it. There's really a lot to it. Now, the cool part is, I think Chad likes, being in the mix of all these industry people and all the. I mean, I think he likes being in the middle of that. And what he does, you go look at the Bernie Grunman interviews and the what he brings to us. He brings to us these people that really lift back the veil of working with different groups, the Carpenters, Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie. He's talking about how involved these people get versus their producers. He told a great story about Tapestry with Carole King. Lou Adler came in, sent it to him, and he said, hey, this is minimal instrumentation, very first draft, first cut for Tapestry. Just do your magic, but there isn't a lot there. Just do what you do and send it to me. And so, Bernie went in, he listened to it, and, he said, there were a few things I felt, I want to maybe put a little romantic kind of spin on the way it sounded here and there, but I didn't do a lot. Sent it back to Lou Adler. Lou Adler listened to him. An hour later, he called and said, that's it. We're done. That was it. He in his mind had maybe some thought that it needed to be more grandiose. And I guess the imagery that Bernie was able to convey through the way he mastered it kind of solidified the wholeness of the simplicity of it. And sometimes things can be very simple, and Tapestry is not complex in any way. I don't know, you could definitely 4-track, maybe 8-track, but 4-track even that album. You don't need, it doesn't need a bazillion channels. It's just very very basic and very steady. And so, those are the kind of things you learn. And then you get into a thriller thing and it's totally complicated. It's all over the place. They didn't like it. They waited a month. They were sitting on it. They were trying different mixes. They were just, they were all over the place. Much more complicated, trying to hit a certain market, hit a certain message, get a certain beat, just very much more complicated process. So I find that interesting. You might find it boring, but I find it interesting to understand how things get to where, they lay there and we're listening to it, but what got it there? There's a famous line or refrain in I Saw Her Again by the Mamas and the Papas, where Denny comes in and says, I saw her, and then I saw her again. He shouldn't have said that line. And their producer said it just sounded so natural. He just left it in. He left the mistake in because it seemed right. It felt right. if you're a purist, you kind of go, oh, you screwed the lineup. But it was just, I don't know, and you listen to it now, and it's kind of like I listen for it every time. It's kind of like it's just like a hook. It's kind of like a strange hook. So the sausage making of most, yeah, sausage making, yeah. Yeah, that's a term that Cad used a lot, seeing how we make the sausage. And he was talking about that with other, helping other labels to know how to do what they do. And he said, we're open to that. We're open to, talking to startups on, he said, but the issue is we meet with them and he said, and then they end up not doing something in the process. There'll be something that they compromise on or that they don't do. And then it's kind of like, okay. And then something doesn't go right. And you're like, well, you cut a corner, you try to do something different. You tried to, and that's, it's that way in business generally, right? You start cutting corners, right? I always say that the word shortcut, everybody thinks about the word short and nobody thinks about the word cut. It's like, hey, shortcut. Well, there's maybe a consequence, shortcuts. I know in safety, people get hurt a lot when they take shortcuts and maybe they get cuts from their shortcuts. So, it takes really, integral process to get something accomplished. And when you start to make compromises, you start to yield lesser outcomes usually. And I think that's the case. So, I, I wanted to be an audio engineer. I mean, that was really, when I was in radio and that, I wanted to be an audio engineer. That was kind of my back of my mind desire, mixing music and, that kind of thing. And it just never happened for a variety of reasons. I never got in that direction, but I used to like doing mixing and engineering and putting spots together in the radio station and things like that a lot. We took a lot of the singles and an LP cuts and that and put them to 4-track, what are called 4-track slot tapes that were loop tapes like 8 tracks, but they were 4-track. And they would be what we would play for songs instead of actual records at a certain point. We did that. And I used to like, making sure I hit those right at the start and really fading cleanly and making sure I had the right compression levels and all those kind of things. I always enjoyed that. But, that life, like a lot of them, I just don't know how I would have gotten into it. There just wasn't a venue or wasn't a path to get there from that. So anyway, so I'd say look for on the channel this week could be coming, like I said, a Steely Dan, Can't Buy a Thrill, a little bit of mashup on that and reflection on that album and its impact. And from 50-year standpoint, boy, there are a lot of albums to go through for 50 years. There's, the next, this is one of the interesting things. The next, let's say 8 years, at least 8 to 10 years, there are going to be a lot of albums that are hitting their 50th anniversary. And a lot of these pressing plants are going to be processing those. There's going to be a lot of reissues on those. So that's going to be a good piece of capacity that's going to be used. So hadn't watched your Rachel's group bid, but did everyone feel that we would get a bona fide? Well, yeah, her streams are usually not saved. They're usually deleted after they're live. So just, you wouldn't really find it. What we're understanding there from through Miles Showell is that we definitely will have a non-digital mono version, but that they remastered it, or they're not using the plates from the mono box to make that album, which is a little it makes one wonder why. Is it because they want to hold that back and then maybe come out with another box set and then say that plate was only used on the box sets? I don't know. It just seemed a little peculiar, and it for me, it raises that eyebrow of suspicion. And frankly, I think ever since the MoFi thing, I think anything you hear, you're always wondering, Yeah, exactly. It's like Arsenio Hall. Things that make you go, hmm. I just felt like what it's like the 40,000 Michael Jackson thing, right? It doesn't make sense, you know. And and I just don't I don't I don't understand the logic of that. And I don't know if anybody listened to. Okay, so Taxman was released on a YouTube video last week, and it was on a standalone video. And then they did a promo video that showed different aspects of the box set and that. And Taxman was playing, and it sounded different. And here's the reason I say that: the one that was purely for Taxman, the tambourine was suppressed and the cowbell was suppressed in the background. And then when you listen to it on the one that was more promotional for the whole set, it sounded, I'll say, normal. It sounded like the tambourine and the cowbell were forward like they were from what I was used to. So that even confused me. So video for what I would be looking at graphics, any of the things that they show in graphics when they're in the graphics department, and when Chad is A-Bing albums. Those are the two areas that I think had the most predominant Easter eggs. So more cowbell. Yeah, always a good call. We're not doing the Reaper thing though. Now we're that was classic though, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, there's just some classic things in life. That was one. Wayne's World, Bohemian Rhapsody, is another. Just certain things that just just off the charts a bit. So, but those are the two, Alex, that I would tell you the two areas where you probably find the most. You just got to really pause it quickly. Yeah, one of the ones I caught in real time. It's something I know so well that as soon as it crossed the screen, my brain went ding, 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 and it had already gone past it. And I had to rewind. I'm like, my brain is telling me I saw that. Did I see that? It's like, yeah, you saw that, but you didn't see it for very long. But, and I told Chad that story, and he's like, oh, okay. Oh, well, that's, but by the way, and I don't know if I've said this, I just can't remember. But that video came out about the time that the MoFi thing was hitting and everything like that, and everybody said, "Well, boy, yeah, they're marketing opportunists there, man. They're really going for the jugular." Well, that video had been in production for months. It had been being put together. So the release of it, the timing of it, and when it was ready, it was really coincidental. I mean, there was no way they put that thing from the time that the MoFi thing broke and when they released it. It had a lot more time than that. Had a lot more, the editing and all the filming and then all the editing and all. So that was, yeah, I talked about that when I was there. So if anybody thought that was just, it was good fortune, it was luck, it was coincidence, whatever you want to call it, but it wasn't, plan. Yes, I do have plans to go to Colorado. I have someone in the know lurking for me with the Vinyl Me Please. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about California. I don't know what MoFi is going to allow or not allow, but Vinyl Me Please, yeah. I could have a second job. Yeah, well, that'd be a nice second job. I would enjoy. I would enjoy getting a little more close on the inside and helping out in some of those areas. And that is something that I've talked to Chad about because I want to see all these guys do as well as they can because there's plenty of pie to go around. That's not the issue. The issue is quality, repeatability, customer focus, and error reduction. I mean, that really is where we want to go for the majority of what we're focused on. So, Gary is, yeah, well, Gary, yeah, Gary, exactly. Gary's there now. So, yeah, and that was, what could Chad say? I mean, it's Gary did a great job for him, and I didn't feel any animosity at all. He only had good things to say about Gary and what he did, and wished him well, and felt like he's got a team now that Gary has prepared. So, those things happen in business and in life, and it's good that Vinyl Me Please get somebody that has seniority in a successful business as well. That gives us some confidence in them as well. But I think, how do I put this? Here's my thing. Gary, working with a guy named Chad, a guy like Chad, I mean, he is a very, he's not a corporate kind of guy. He's a private personal investment owner, business owner kind of guy. And he treats his people like that, and he gets it. And, Chad's a lot more amenable at face value. And if Chad says no to something, there's usually a damn good reason why he says no to it. So my point is, when you work in an environment like that and you work in an ethic like that, going to a corporate environment, I'll call it for lack of a better term, non-private, if they don't have those same stylings or the same approaches, I think that it can be more difficult, and on both sides. So I just hope that they're good at listening. I hope he's good at pushing back on what his instincts are, because I've seen too many times where good people get in those environments and they can't really perform their craft as well because of the restrictions, requirements, whatever they are. I mean, and that is unfortunate. So, yeah, right, David. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Yeah, and that's honestly how Chad feels, and those guys take a lot of ownership there. I mean, they really they know their stuff, and they know what they're doing, and I don't have any problem with that. But in speaking about Gary going into a bigger company, going into that, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be potentially probably more automation in the Denver situation, at least in the pressing area and other things. And although they do the same thing, the approach of the way the equipment works and the finesse of things and whatever can be very different between older equipment and newer equipment. And to kind of balance that out and work it through, Gary's going to learn some new things too. I mean, in terms of some of that capability, but I just hope it really works out. Obviously, I do. But it is always a cautionary tale when someone goes from a very engaged owner, knowledgeable owner, collaborator, and you go into an environment where you don't have as much control, or you don't have as much input, or you feel like you're not, steering the ship, but you're responsible for the ship. I'll say I've been in those situations. I have left roles because of that. Basically said, yeah, I've got the title, I've got the responsibility, but you're ended up making the decisions. I don't agree with the decisions. People come back to me and said, why do you do this? And I'm like, I didn't do that, but I see why you think I did, because it's under my responsibility. And so I kind of said, well, you really don't need me, because I'm just, I say, a figurehead at this point. If I'm not engaged in the decisions and can support them or have input into them, then that's a fool's errand to want to be in that position. So, Acoustic Sounds 15-minute for a few months ago. Oh the one behind the scenes. So I have a behind the scenes. I have a video on behind the scenes that I did, which is what kind of inspired me to go there in the first place, kind of thing. So yeah, they did that. That is a great video, and um, there's the thing I really liked about it is that they brought in their people. They let their people that worked there talk about the issues they were having and the opportunities they saw and why they needed to do what they were doing. It wasn't just talking heads; it was the people that do the work, and I really respect that a lot because you know. I was as a manager, I always told my people, if I'm successful, it's because you're successful, and it's because you're successful that's a reflection, because I fail if you're not successful. I'm a failure then. So it's very important to have that humility and that attitude, and Chad has that in spades, and that is a huge part of a business's success, because even when they have a problem, even when something goes wrong, and it will go wrong, you go in that together. You go in as a team, you're rowing in the same direction, and you work it through together. That's really important, because if you're not in that mode, what ends up happening is when something goes wrong, everybody starts pointing fingers at each other because there isn't that collaboration and moving together. And then everything starts to break apart. So those kind of things, those soft skills are really, really important. Old and refurb presses. No, there are new manufacturers building new equipment. Yeah, there's new manufacturers building automated equipment. Yes, definitely they are. And there definitely are pressing plants being built that use those. There are even some older models being refurbed as part of to keep them alive for the plants that don't want to have automation and want to have that traditional style and methodology. It's also cheaper from a capital investment standpoint to buy those. Obviously, it is probably a little more expensive to maintain them than the newer equipment. So, but you can have more backup equipment. You can have more presses with the older style, so that if one goes offline or you need to do something with one, you can do another. Whereas, these hundreds of thousands of dollars types of automated equipment, you're not going to be able to have as much duplication or backup of that. If those go down, you're not, so it's a balancing act, to do. Um, Yeah, there are both. Yeah, exactly. Both types are being used. Um, and is one better than the other? Well, theoretically, you can, on the newer ones, I think you have more process control opportunity. You can get down to smaller increments of size and of uh, let's say calibration or of tolerances. I think you can get down a little tighter. You can have more warning systems to tell you if something's off, something's not right. You have much better. It's not mechanical in the sense that it's not all tripping manual type things, or they're more PLC and electronic computerized control type things. So new lacquer plants, not so much. Yeah, the one burned down. That's a whole. I'm surprised that didn't have a bigger impact than it did. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think the lacquer is definitely a resource that I thought was going to be a lot more limited than it is. Bigger impact. I'm just going to say that I think it having a bigger impact than it has. So someone the other day sent a note, or sent, I think it was on the Analog Productions fan club page, about, well, how can Chad do 25,000 kind of blues if he only gets 1,000 out of a lacquer? Well, that person was thinking about the one-step process that goes from lacquer to the stamper. But in Chad's case, he's going from the lacquer to the father to the mother to the stamper. And you can make any number of stampers out of mothers. And if the mother goes bad, you can make a mother out of the father. So you have that chain in there that's always there, where the one steps don't have that. Because in Chad's case, and in many cases, the actual stamper that goes on there, it's going to be between 500 and 1,000 punches before it's replaced. But you can make any number of those stampers off of the mothers because that's a hard plate. So totally different situation. And again, that's why it's important to know the one step is about that part of the process. So, such poor quality from Europe and United. Apathy, real lack of maintenance service. Yeah, a majority of plants have had staffing issues in general. There's quality is an interesting thing because it depends on which side of the coin you see quality on. Quality assurance or quality control. Quality assurance is building into the process all of the checks and balances, or as many as you can, to assure the product has quality. Whereas quality control is a check, a verification, a validation with human error typically. Even robotics can have error, but more human error usually. So the assurance that you can build into it is, it's like the old Zenith statement: the quality goes in before the name goes on, right? That was their old moniker. And so quality has to be built into the processes, has to be built into the materials, has to be built into the methodologies, the work environment, the heat, the cooling, the all of the things that go into the recipe, right? So quality assurance is making sure that whatever went into that soup that you made is right and good. And quality control is when someone takes it out and sips it and says, is that any good or is that not any good? Right? Well, it's already been made. It's already been done. Now quality control, all it can do is scrap it. All it can do is say, nope, I'm not going to serve that. Right? So and I think material is a big piece, and cost cutting and shortcuts and all those kind of things, they come into play in a lot of things. I mean, they really do. um, I was in manufacturing 45 years and still associated to it, and I will tell you that the scariest thing in the world to me is when an accountant comes in and says, I have an idea how we can save some money. Those are the scariest words you ever want to hear. Um, um, because what it means is that they've come up with some algebraic numeric methodology to make something look good on paper. And sometimes those people are about as far away from the actual work product or process as it you can be. Sometimes you think the guard in the company works closer with the product than some of the accountants do that make these decisions. And I'm being dead honest with you. I just that's I respect the profession, but my point is they can have influences well above their pay grade in the sense of impacting the customer or impacting the workers, impacting the processes. A lot of things look good on paper. I can make a lot of things look good on paper. That's really not that difficult when you think about it. It's really when it comes into the rubber meeting the road that's where the proof of that comes or not. And I'll give you an example in manufacturing. So people that work in sourcing or purchasing, their goal and role in life is to get a supplier to make a product at the cheapest level possible, or find a replacement supplier to make a product or provide a product at the cheapest level possible. The degree to which they get into specifications is marginal. And a lot of times the suppliers will say, well, it's the same as X. Y is the same as X. And you look at them and you go, yep, They are. But when you look at the ingredients or you look at some aspect of it, it's not quite it. It's not quite it. Is it really a generic of that medication, or is it, what is it really? And so sometimes these accommodations are made because those people in accounting are looking at lowering numbers. The people in sourcing are getting their bonus based on how much price reduction they can get year over year on these products. That's kind of what they do. And then, there's the quality side. So the quality side, because I worked in the quality side, measured on reduction of defects. Okay, well, okay, I'm not producing the product. If I'm checking the product and I say you have more defects, I'm not creating the defects. I'm doing my job and catching them. So why doesn't the person who made that change to the supplier who introduced the defects, the fact that they got a bonus for reducing price, why don't they get a reduction in that because they've increased inspection, decreased throughput because of rejects? I mean, where's the balance there? There's a problem in the way business is run in this regard. The measures of business are like this at each other, and they conflict to the point of where they lose money, the customer loses quality or time if it's something that's time dependent. And these things have been going on for decades and decades and decades. And I find it ironic that businesses just never reconcile this issue. They don't reconcile issues. I was once measured on something that said, if these departments do X, then that's, you're going to be measured by whether they do it or not, whether they are whether they're updating their methods a certain way we want them to. And so I would go in and try to help them do that. And they didn't want to do it. They didn't have time for that. And why didn't they have time for that? They weren't measured on doing that. They weren't measured to improve that. They weren't measured to work on that. So they had no interest. So I was being measured on something that others had no desire to do. So it's almost like, well, what was I, a cop or Elliot Ness, or what was the expectation there? I mean, seems it starts with them having the desire, and then I can help them achieve that, but I can't hold a gun to their head, right? So those are some of the normal give and takes, back and forths, conflicts that occur in business. A food scientist that I know said everything changed at Domino's when the Wall Street money came in. Suppliers got cheaper, quality went down, race to the bottom. Yeah. 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 The true passion of what that owner wanted and what he did and why he did it and why it got him to where he got and who he was got defaced at that point. And that's what happens. That is exactly what happens. And that's why these takeovers are so problematic. Break the Pub recently said, and a few other teams, Palace and Optimal are very good now. Palace is. Optimal is improved, but I've still had some bad pressings from Optimal, but they are much improved. They are. And I said something about Optimal the other day and was corrected like, oh, no, they're fine. And I think they're way better, but I have had a few problematic but Palace is almost, I don't want to say foolproof because that's not really, but I mean, they're way up there in terms of quality. And by the way, Palace is the exclusive pressing house for Speaker's Corner, I might add. And it's like the Fleetwood Mac Rumors reissues, the 2x45, for example. Make sure if you get that on the gold label, it says pressed at Palace. There's a bunch of them that don't say it. And I'm not positive they're pressed at Palace. I don't know if it was a sticker thing or what, but I wouldn't buy one unless I was really sure. Doesn't one of them polish their records? I have read that, and I don't know if it was Palace. It may have been Palace. And there's conflicting beliefs on whether you should or should not do that or whatever. So, but I know I haven't really had. I can't think of a bad Palace pressing I've had. I have been in contact with Kai Seaman, who is the president of Speaker's Corner. He did an interview on Anna Dialogue, I think it's called, which I think I told you guys. I was emailing that guy for 4 or 5 weeks before that. I didn't realize he was the president because nothing said it in his signature. I didn't know, but he has agreed. He's on a sailing trip right now for a holiday with his wife. So he said, I'll do an interview, but I'll be on a sailboat, and I'm not sure it'll come out so good. But we've got a few topics to cover. But he's a really straight up guy and has a really good business philosophy. I would say I really enjoy conversing with him, even whether it's through email or otherwise. What's going on? Sticking? Yeah, Warrant by Kevin Gray. You're right. Yeah. Do I know who does Impacts? I'm not sure. I'm not, but I know their quality is fabulous. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't Palace, to be honest with you, but I'm saying that purely out of outcomes as opposed to what I would tell you do is take a few Impacts releases, go to Discogs, look under credits. A lot of times, it could be RTI. Yeah, that was the other thought I had. But look under the credits, and usually it'll say, a lot of times it'll say where it was pressed at. That's, I'm trying to get hold of Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's the Way of the World on Impacts. I think I've got to notify from the In-Groove on that when it comes back in. I've got the Speaker's Corner one, and it's really good. But I would, RTI sounds familiar from Impacts. But yeah, that's the way to check it out. I would, and the other thing you do, like I said, look up your mastering guys, your Grunmans and your Ludwigs and your Grays and your Ryan K. Smiths, and look them up on the PC or Mac version of Discogs browser version, and then you can see their releases, see what things that they've had assigned to their name. It doesn't show up that way on the app, but it's a good way to know what they've done and get some orientation to what they've done, because it makes a huge difference. They are RTI. Well, there you go. Thank you, David. Okay. There you go. So they're pressed the same place where MoFis are currently pressed. I'm trying to find out when the MoFi plant, there were some indications it may be in production in Q1 of next year. So that would mean the plant's pretty far along at this point. So I don't know if one of the thoughts that had come up was if MoFi, if they had already been capitalized for it, then things would probably go through. But the questions are: have they seen a downward spiral in terms of orders? Have they, is there some anything that might affect their ability to get that project completed because of all these other things going on? Those are open questions. What's good about Impex is great. I keep wondering. I was just saying about Earth, Wind, and Fire. Well, that's a Sony label. That's CBS. So the bells start ringing really fast, unless they're just using they're making the mothers available to make the stampers. I don't know. Can't be cheap. Anything California. They're not, the margins are not going to be as good as they would be. But you're going to Palace across the ocean. It's not that. You've got other taxes, tariffs, VATs, and all sorts of stuff over there too. So, the old statement about quality costs. Well, there are costs and there are investments. Are you investing in the quality of the product because you want a good customer experience. You want less returns. You know, um, I've known companies that, say, well, I only have one, I only have one person in customer satisfaction because I don't have a lot of problems. I don't, you know, the few, I feel more calls with people with positive feedback than I do with people saying I got a problem or I want a replacement of something. Well, that's a good environment to have because if you got, say, I got 6 customer support people. Well, okay, does that mean they take orders, or does that mean they field calls for problems, or what's it about? Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, quality is an intrinsic way to build in process integrity into a process and product. And if you have problems, determining what caused those and eliminating those causes creates, a better quality assurance so that quality control doesn't have to catch those anymore. And that's the way you kind of do things. Yeah, Rhino crafting. Yeah, they're using. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly true. They're using these top notch engineers and I mean, yeah, I mean, Rhino's selling a $25 album. You know, and so yeah, it does. Chad is thinking about doing his own covers down the road. Um, the covers are a kind of a unique kind of thing. Uh, I know that he's going to be expanding his printing capabilities. To do, to be able to have more capacity. I do know that, but I don't know how far he's going to take it. You know, it is within his style, it is within his business approach to bring as much in house as he can. It's not within his style to do that for the sake of doing it. In other words, if he can't match or beat the quality, then I think he would not. He would choose not to. But would he go in that direction to try to, you know, better his controls and better, maybe his margins a little bit as well? I could see that very easily. But, it won't be something that's done holistically on the basis of that you just can control it. There has to be, it has to be able to match or beat the quality of what he's getting. So. Yeah, he is almost a full. Yeah, the only thing they really send out is, yeah, those covers to get done. That is about it. That is about it. And yeah, I asked a question of them about do they need to get those covers then back and approved, and do they need to do a short run on them or anything like that? Um, and he said no, generally not, because usually the labels provide the graphics and they trust what they've done traditionally and what Stoughton does as well. So that's not a big deal. But he said, like, they get their like we were talking about Hendrix. We just happened to be talking about Hendrix, and he said, yeah, the Hendrix estate, they provided all of those graphics and everything and placement, and they really have tight control over everything. But it's an indication to me, someone that has that much care about the catalog and the legacy of an artist, trusting them, wholly with this. They're, pretty much the Hendrix place. I mean, it's quite the compliment to them, I think, as well. Yeah, I think they are. The jackets aren't really the bottleneck anymore. Was actually doing some limited final I don't know. That never came up, honestly, and that may have been back when you had less capacity. I'm not sure. I, that didn't come up, so I can't honestly say that they very well could have been. I definitely not right now. I know I don't think they are from what I see of the processes of what's in queue and what's going in the products right now and what they're doing. But again, if there were shortages, long lead times, other things that made the process more problematic to serve the customer. But you don't. It's like these multi LP releases. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people go, "Oh, I got two record ones of the one step, or I got two record twos of the runs. Anybody got, we can swap." And I'm like, "Oh my God, how does that happen?" That's just like, oh, that's just painful to me to think that something so basic is happening on, it makes me want to understand what the hell in your process has fallen apart. What did you compromise on? You know. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, thanks for that, David. Info, David. Yeah, yeah. Well, businesses, they need flexibility and to be. My point is that that's a business relationship that exists already. In other words, between them and Acoustic Sounds, and that's a more of a, they're not just, I don't say, farming something out to somebody to be farming out. I think that's a logistics advantage and maybe a temporary type thing done. So I'm sure there's, I'll be honest, every place I think is having an issue with like resources, people, hiring, keeping people. It's really, I think that's going on a lot more than we know, I think. And, and it does, have an impact. I mean, Chad's trying to get a third shift going, and it's quite an effort right now, a struggle to find the resources to make that happen. So, wanting to do something and being able to do something are sometimes two different things. But that's, you know, pretty impressed. All right, David. Yeah, I didn't realize it was this late too. Thank you, though. I appreciate you chiming in as usual and being a good guy and getting to meet you offline a bit. Thank you very much for your help. So, so anyway, I'm about where I'm gonna. Yeah, 11. I'll get off here. Hour and a half's enough. Hadn't planned an hour and a half, but so this week again, I'll be having a 50th anniversary kind of a I don't know what to call it, a celebration, I guess, of Steely Dan's "Can't Buy a Thrill," because it's every time I listen to it, it's a celebration to me. And I'll be releasing a video on Christian contemporary music, and then later in the week, hope to maybe joining. We'll see about Steve Westman's show. I'd like to join that Friday if he needs a guest, or will take me, because want to talk a bit about some MoFi things to respond to what came up last week. And other than that, it's just another great week in the vinyl world. So you all take care and stay well. And I really appreciate all of you, of course. And again, if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about offline, it's sound@safeandsound.com, texas.com. Sound@safeandsoundtexas.com. See, it's even tough for me. If you can't remember it, it's in my About section in my YouTube channel. So all of you take care. Have a great week. Stay safe. Hug your kids. Hug your wife. Kick your dog. No, don't kick your dog. I'm just kidding. Uh, hug your dog as well. I have one. And hope you guys have a great week. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.